folks join us. Well, thank you to those of you who have joined. This is webinar number 8 in a series of 10 webinars that have been supported by an award from PCORI in an effort to improve the NM's community's voice and our connection to researchers, trying to have the patient community amplify our voice so that we can actually move research in a forward and positive direction. So I'll start off by saying thank you to the researchers and clinicians that are here today for participating and being available on a Saturday to be able to support the community and allow us to answer any questions, but also listen. The primary goal of today is to listen to the different communications that you might have around NM so that the researchers can further understand how they should target their research to your specific needs and the needs of the entire community as a whole. Jen, you want to flip a slide? Thank you. So just for your information, there's closed captioning available right at the top of the screen. If you wiggle, it should give you options to do that with your cursor. The webinar will be recorded, as we just turned on, and shared on open platforms. Please mute yourself, because we're not controlling that today. And then when we call upon you, please go ahead and open your mic, and we'll have some time for questions. During the breakout rooms, we encourage everyone to have open mics so we can kind of have a community discussion. If you can, if you hover over your picture, there's 3 little dots in the side, 3 little ellipses in the top of your box. If you don't mind, change your name by hitting rename. So you might have to right click to get it to come up, but click on it, rename yourself, and then add what gene type you have if you know. And if you happen not to know, you can put a question mark or nothing at all. We'll ask people to do that now because when we go into breakout rooms, it'll help us to identify what room to place you in. Okay. And just to go through a little bit of the agenda, obviously, again, the welcoming of everyone here. We are going to go through a little bit of details about what we've learned from the webinars to date and the importance of the understanding our own the genetic profile, as well as getting registered. We're going to take a few polls, very, very brief polls to get a pulse on the community. We're going to ask that the community members themselves, try and fill out the polls. If you have trouble with the polls at all, you can send us a note in chat. The polls are a little bit more anonymous. So again, we'll go ahead and follow through with those. We'll break out into gene-specific groups. So hopefully we'll get enough folks that'll be separated into the large breakout groups. And then we'll come back into the larger groups so we can summarize and recap. So, and then we'll have some Q&A with the available researchers and clinicians at the end with some summary steps, and then identifying some next steps from our organization as well. We're already hearing from me, so this is another note just to say hello and just really check in with everybody. And we're really happy that people could be here. We hope that the recording gets watched and you share it with other community members that were unable to attend today. We are hopeful that the communications that we have in these webinars, as well as any sort of follow-up after, allow us to communicate to the research community our goals of trying to move research forward and try and advance our clinical findings so that we can actually move closer to a clinical trial. I'm really excited to announce, and I know it's been announced somewhat on social media, but that the foundation has fully confirmed and will support $1 million commitment towards running the natural history study. And all the researchers and clinicians that are here today are taking part in that with us. It's going to be led by Stanford, so Carolina Tessarocha, who's here today, going to be one of the point people, and everyone else here that is again a part of the research team will be engaging in their different communities and geographic regions to be able to make sure that we're collecting tests that are very, very similar to any other location. It'll be at 6 different geographic locations across North America. So hopefully making it as convenient as possible. The age ranges have been specified to test the 0 to 16 age population. And the primary reason is not to avoid testing the adult community, but we actually, when we watch that community from 0 to 16, we actually see the most change occurring over that time span. And so as that development occurs, if we can measure the different milestones and compare them against what might be typically expected, then we can actually compare how our strategies or treatments may be affecting our community. And if any of the researchers wanted to chime in here and say it better than I just did, I'm open. I did okay.
You did good. You did good. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay, I think we'll move on to the next step, Jen. So here's the first poll question. We really are curious to know how many people in our community that are attending are registered in the CMDIR. So we'll do a quick straw poll. And anyone who actually has an affected individual in their family can go ahead and answer as a representative or the individuals themselves. And we're just really interested in knowing if you're registered and if you have updated your profile in the last 18 months. And Jen, you tell me when you're pressing go. There we go. Okay. If you're not seeing it, maybe you could put a little bump in the chat just to say you're not seeing it. It did come across my screen. Thanks, Jen.
It did pop up. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, and then I'm not sure if you want to run the second question, Jen, or you want to wait till more people have a chance to answer.
Share the results of that first question. Is that coming up?
It is, yeah, thank you. I think if I think those of you can see it. So it says that there's one person not registered, one person not sure. I think that seems to be about the numbers that are present here. So if we have 10 people. Yeah, let's run with the second question. If you are registered, have you updated your profile in the last 18 months? Okay, so go ahead and submit that question. Thank you. What we're trying to gather is, is our community registered? How much effort do we need to put towards it? For those of you that don't know, we do have Noah Fryu, who is an adult with NM, who actually has had some work experience within Beg's lab during his college career. He's graduating from college right now, and he's moving on to continue to study biology in his advanced education work. And so he's actually signed on to help us by being our registry specialist and try and assist families with getting people registered and updated in the profile. Great, and I think you can see the results. Again, maybe one extra person or 2 extra people that either have not or don't know. And the updating in and of itself and the registering can take, about an hour of your time. And that's why we've set up Noah to be able to walk you through the process. It's a little bit more streamlined when he's, experienced in the steps and process and can help support you or explain the questions that they're trying to get to. So thank you. The importance of the registry really is to take all of the folks that are represented in our community and show pharma, the pharmaceutical companies, that we actually have good representation of our community. we actually have enough people for them to go ahead and run tests on, and that they actually may see financial return. Well, we can't do that if people hold back from registering or getting confirmed in their genetic diagnosis. Stacy?
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. So just a little bit more about the registry. If you're new to the registry, I just went through and highlighted the 3 basic steps for you to get in the registry. This does not take much time at all. This is 10 minutes or less. And the only information that you need to know is your own personal information, your address, your email address, that you have Nemaline myopathy. There's a drop-down list of all the clinical diagnoses. You scroll about 2/3 of the way down, Nemaline myopathy is there, you click on it. It's really simple. We've made it really easy for you to do. And then at the end, you just click submit survey. And at that point, you can be completely finished. You've completed the essential parts of it. Mark mentioned that there are some additional forms that you can fill out. If you choose to do those, it can take up to an hour. It really depends on how many of the forms apply to you. So some of the forms are going to be about scoliosis. And if you've never had scoliosis or treatment for that, then you wouldn't fill out that form. So it's quite variable, but at the most it would take you an hour if you did it all at one time, but you can do one form at a time too. Next slide, please. And if you're returning to the registry, meaning that you had registered in the past, but you haven't gone back to your profile within the last 1.5 years, then what we need you to do is return in order to set yourself up on this new platform where everything is currently running. And the steps are very similar to the folks who are registering for the first time, except you've already put in all of your basic information. You know, your address is there, Nemaline myopathy is already there. So that stuff's going to go really fast. The only thing you would need to change is if you have moved, then you would obviously put in your new address. And at the end, you just click save and continue and then submit survey. And again, you're done at that point. If you'd like to start on the forms and you'll provide that extra medical information, you can choose to do it at that time or at another time. And each of them are separated into forms. Each form would take you, a couple minutes to do. Really depends on how involved your particular case is. Next slide. Looks like this one's the poll. So we'd like to find out how many people joining us today have genetic confirmation of the particular Nemaline myopathy subtype in your family. So go ahead and submit that.
If you were diagnosed years ago before, whole genome sequencing or exome sequencing was available, readily available, the diagnosis was primarily made by muscle biopsy with a follow-up of trying to check some of the smaller gene tests first because they were more affordable. And so this, if you haven't been tested, again, looks like one person doesn't know. Again, we can help you find out. There probably is some, again, medical record search and scan we could probably do to support you. And Stacy, you want to let them know a little bit more information about that possibility?
Yes, so for genetic testing, we have a resource we'd like to share with everyone today. This is through the Rare Genomes Project. It is a free program that's available to everyone in the Nemaline myopathy community, and I really want to encourage you to give this a try. There's no referral needed. You do not need health insurance. The blood draw for it is done locally, and the cost of that blood draw is completely covered by the program. Any findings are reported to your physician, who would then order clinical confirmation. And then those clinical results would be reported to you through your physician. In order to apply, you just go to this website that I've linked at the bottom, raregenomes.org/howitworks. And you'll see a button at the bottom of that page that says start an application, and that's how you begin. And as we've been saying, it's really, really important that people go through the genetic testing process, because knowing your specific gene subtype is going to be really important for us moving forward, and being able to figure out treatments and things like the natural history study.
Jen, do you want to move to stop sharing screen and bring the grid up? Great, just so we can see the more full names and we can kind of figure out how the breakout rooms might work. Yes, to go on top of what Stacy said, and what I also mentioned before, was by completing the natural history study, we're hoping that sends smoke signals up to pharma and also to the FDA, which will also be our next webinar, preparing the community for our FDA communication. So trying to prepare us for those smoke signals to pharma to say that our community is ready to stand up and be tested and move forward with finding treatments. So again, thank you for being here. So representation is on the lower side for this Saturday morning. I would say that we have what looks like strong NEB community. I believe Kelly also fits into that category. Sharon also fits into that category.
Yeah.
Here, I know that the Laframboise family fits into one of the more rare subtypes. And so I think we can still, break out to rooms as we had planned. I'm happy to bounce around too, because I don't see any other ACTA representation here. So if we have to, we can bounce around. But Jen, if you want to split the room into two, maybe 2 breakout rooms, and then we can have.
Shouldn't we be all together?
Want us to just stay all together?
Yeah, I think probably everyone could stay all together and that could work well.
Okay, I see some thumbs up. Okay. Sarah, do you want to take lead maybe on the questions?
Sure. So I'm Sarah, and I'm here as a foundation building strength facilitator for this discussion. And I have the questions here in front of us, and they're just some prompts to start a conversation about some of the interests of the community and priorities in regards to research priorities. And so one of the first topics is just talking about what kind of things make your life or the life of your loved one difficult, as a starting point for thinking, well, if that was a little easier, how would life be a little easier? So just what categories of activities might be difficult for you, or what makes your day difficult, or your loved one's day? And I can start with an example, as I have a loved one who has myopathy, and one of the most impactful symptoms that he has is fatigue. And so treating fatigue would make a big difference in our situation. So I just turn that over to you guys. And if you think about going through your day, what are some things that make life difficult, and if they got improved, would have a positive impact?
Can we stay on fatigue for 1 minute, Sarah, maybe, and say, does everyone else experience, that similar symptom? Is this across all subtypes? See,
Yeah, I would say for me, it is.
And Lucinda, do you mind sharing a little bit about how that plays out? Is it fatigue every day, or is it after a big day for you?
I would say that the level of fatigue varies from day to day, but it definitely is a problem every day. So, and I think that fatigue is kind of an overall problem that also plays into affecting some of the other problems that I experience, such as breathing difficulties, which is muscle related, like strength related, and related to fatigue. Breathing is really difficult for me, and because of how much energy it takes for me to breathe, I will fatigue more quickly, especially on days that I'm not feeling like I can breathe very well. Yeah.
Then how about talking too? Does talking just, wear you out and?
Oh
impact-
yeah, definitely. Talking, and if I'm up and moving, or even just standing still, that'll make me more tired and feel more fatigued. And that will reduce my ability to breathe and talk. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, thank you for sharing all that.
Mhm.
It's a lot. I know here you are saying you're talking makes you tired and we're making you talk.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else within the NEB community want to kind of stay on that concept for a minute? Anyone want to share?
I'm speaking for Liv, who is eating. And so she, as Lucinda was talking, said, just say that that is me talking. So she definitely relates to everything that Lucinda just said.
I'm hoarse.
It's definitely newer for us. Liv is 11. So Lucinda, I know that you have, your experience has been longer. So we've seen in the last year or so an increase in how tired Liv is, especially at the end of the day when she's kind of like a puddle. And so we notice like her breathing is worse, her speech is worse, like very mumbled, dinner takes a very, very, very long time. And she, even now, like if she's walking, she can't talk at the same time. So I think being able to have increased energy would be very helpful. And for us also, just because we are still really focused on trying to increase strength and do a lot of exercise, obviously, if she was less fatigued, then she would be able to be more active.
Thank you. Alexandra, you're gonna chime in? I see you leaning in.
Yeah, so I have to agree with what Lucinda said and also and Sharon also. So I I work full time and so like I'm going into the office and like interacting a lot with people, so a lot of talking and like Zoom calls and phone calls. And so I would say talking a lot, all at once, like for a long time at a time, it makes me kind of, you know, I can tell that it's, wearing me out. And also walking and talking at the same time, that's very difficult, especially, with having to wear, a mask, like especially during COVID. That's like it's almost suffocating. Um, but yeah, and also I like to like do walking a lot. I would like to do it a lot more, but I find that even just walking, walking across the like a block or so, or even on the treadmill or like down the street, it really fatigues me. And I don't know if it's the fact like the walking itself or like holding my posture up. But it could be a lot of different factors. And um like Lucinda mentioned, it's maybe like hard to tell if it's, fatigue is something that's not connected with breathing difficulties, but I think it is.
Can you say also whether or not you feel the fatigue in your legs when you're walking, or does it play out where as you walk, the breathing challenge is there, like there's more demand?
I think it's more demand like with the breathing, but speaking of fatigue with muscles, whenever, for example, like whenever I try to ride a bike, whether it's like an actual bike on the road or a stationary bike, I cannot do it for very long because my muscles in my legs, I feel, especially my calves, like they're almost stinging. That so it's the muscle fatigue, the cramping from I guess overuse. And so I haven't really noticed it with just walking on the treadmill with any pain or anything, but definitely doing activities like the bike.
I want to
I
take
can
us.
tell muscle fatigue is setting in.
Thank you for that. And ask any of the researchers or clinicians if they have any questions related to fatigue that might help you zone in on some particular factor. Like when the calves start aching, you think of lactate spillover. So like lactate spills out of the muscle, and it is one of the things that generates some of that like post-exercise fatigue and comfort, right? So I don't know, Leslie or Carolina, do you have anything that you'd like to kind of hone in on here?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I appreciate everyone comments, and I wanted to tell you that we are taking into consideration fatigue as one of the parameters that we want to follow in the motor measurements that we are going to be following through the clinical trial. One, for example, is the 6-minute walk for those patients that are ambulant, but there will be other parameters from the pulmonary standpoint and so on, and also for non-ambulatory patients, how to measure that. So we're going to do our best to try to, see how this change and how this trend change within these 2 years follow-up of patients that we are going to do. So I appreciate the comment.
I think, go ahead, Leslie, we can.
Yeah, I think everything's been really fascinating. Sorry for the noise in the background. Great to hear from everyone about the fatigue. And I think maybe building on that, we were starting to talk a little bit about more pain, like muscle cramps and other areas of discomfort. And I'd love to hear from other members if that's something as well. I'll struggle with.
I know that Ava, my 16-year-old, she has to rest for a half an hour lying down before she goes and takes a shower at the end of the day. So there's like, she needs to kind of preempt the shower by lying down for a little while, almost like it would be too much to go directly into the shower. The other thing I wanted to ask about was the amount of recovery time, because normally with exercise we would think, or normal loads, you'd think that you would, if you do just about the same amount every day, that you'd feel a little bit of discomfort in the morning, but as you get going, you're back to yourself. But sometimes if you have a little spike in activity, you'd expect a little bit more than a day's recovery. I know that Ava feels sometimes 2 to 3 days recovery if she has a spike in activity at all. And I'm wondering how long you all feel that prolonged spike in recovery. Even when she was a baby, and speaking to from Bob's family while they're here, Ava slept a lot. It just was something that she just spent a lot of time sleeping, maybe 16 hours a day, almost through the entire first year. Anyone else want to chime in about that and what you're noticing?
I just wanted to make a reflection, which is, I think there's 2 aspects of fatigue, which I think multiple people hit on, but especially Lucinda, which is there's fatigue with activity, or like Alexandra was talking about with the biking or the treadmill, but there's also fatigue with static positions, whether it's prolonged standing, but also wonder about sitting, like just even sitting in a computer, for example, a long time. So static positions, like even driving in a car, riding in a car could be fatiguing. So I don't know, some people talked about fatigue with activity, but also fatigue with sort of maintaining static positions as well. So I was just wondering if anyone had any thoughts on that.
For those that are here, static positions as well can cause fatigue, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sarah. Just to the researchers, is there any examination of, again, like lactate spillover to look at when you're going through some of your muscle testing for natural history to see the way the muscle responds? Is there any, would that give you any more sort of biochemical understanding of what's happening in the muscle related to its, dispensation of energy and then its recovery patterns?
So unfortunately, I don't think that lactate correlates well with like degree of fatigability of the muscles. Like you're correct in that there is the lactate spillover, and that often is associated with discomfort, but I'm not sure that the level would sort of help us correlate. I think it's ultimately going to be a combination of assessments that capture fatigue through their, working with physical therapy over a period of time, and then also kind of well-designed questionnaires that really, and which is sort of, I think, one of the main reasons too why we want to get your all's input on sort of what data in your day-to-day life we should be trying to capture in scales or questionnaires or whatnot.
Erin, I saw you unmute before. Is there a question or?
No, it's more of a comment actually, because I mean, Ryan is obviously still a baby. He's only 8-9 months old or something like that. But we can see already the fatigue sometimes when he has multiple physical therapy sessions or doctor's appointments during the week, and immediately after he'll have to take a huge nap. And he just won't function beyond that point after like an exercise session. And we can see that too, because, and that's weird for us because unlike Ava in your case, Mark, Ryan hates naps during the day. And he actually doesn't nap much, but when he does these exercise sessions, that's when he really, really wants to nap. And naps for long too. But then even if he doesn't nap outside of that during the day, he'll make up for it by basically crying to go to bed around 6:30 in the evening, and he'll kind of shut down at that point.
Thank you. Can we talk a little, just for a minute too, about soreness, like muscle soreness? How long does muscle soreness stay on for you after, like, again, a spike in activity? So, you have a day when you're walking 50% more than you might normally. What is the soreness recovery pattern like?
For me, I would say I will need, if I do something on one day, I'll need from the point I'm done that whole day and then the next day to recover at least. Sometimes I might even need an extra day or like an extra half day. That's usually for me.
That fatigue? Like, can you speak specifically to soreness?
Oh, well, the soreness will also last for up to that long. So my calf muscles are particularly prone to overwork, and when that happens, it kind of feels like they get the muscle will be all sore and like balled up somehow, and that will last for 2 to 3 days. When I wake up in the morning, I'll still feel it, and it will last for a while, and then after 3 days, it'll finally stop hurting, and I'll be able to walk normally again.
Anyone else have comments related to soreness? Yeah, Christina.
Hi. I just wanted to share my input. For example, on Tuesday, I'm not able to lift heavy stuff. And on Tuesday, I went out bowling with my nephews, and the smallest ball was 5 pounds or 6 pounds. And it was doable. And the next day, my arm hurt. It was sore. And it was on Tuesday, so Wednesday it was sore. And even now, I still feel it a little bit sore. And that's just, it was the lightest ball. I didn't do it too much, but it was, so I assume like a week for it to be out. Also, when I do a lot of walking or stairs, I have to do it holding on. But the next day, my calves, they're like hard and sore. And that does last like 2 to 3 days also.
2 to
No.
3 days. Yeah, it's great.
Liv is saying that she doesn't have a lot of soreness, but she gets really tight. So we now have, after her, especially after physical therapy, but even just as sort of like part of saying goodnight routine, we keep a little tennis ball in her bed, and we just kind of roll out her legs, particularly get really, really tight, her thighs and her hip muscles, which then makes it much harder to try and walk. So we've been trying to incorporate a little more rolling and stretching to combat that. Because she'll even say, I mean, usually by the end of the day, she's like, please just get away from me and stop trying to do things. But she's like, stretch me, and where's the ball? So, that's helped.
I think sometimes, not only understanding what things impact you from a functional level, but also what tricks you might learn. Because sometimes the tricks might inform, what things might help. So does anyone have any tricks on, what they do to recover faster when they know that they're going to take on something too much?
I take Tylenol and heating pads.
Heating pads, okay.
Heating pads have been helping me
Thank you.
reduce the pain.
Great. And then if we go into a bit more about sleep, how many people are using support during sleep, whether it be BiPAP, CPAP, ambient O2, anything like that? See some nods, head shakes. Yes, a couple of yeses. Okay, and how many of you, just for the show of hands, maybe have had, a sleep study in the last 2 years? Ryan's raising his hand. Thanks, Christina. Okay.
And is he already on BiPAP or for the baby is already on BiPAP?
No, he's not. He's yeah, we don't use any equipment right now.
But we know at some point that likely he's going to need it at least at night.
Yeah. His next sleep study will be at 12 months of age.
Got it.
Oh, he's very young.
Does anyone use BiPAP during the day, even like for when they're fatigued? I know Lucinda articulated very nicely sometimes the interplay between the respiratory fatigue and the muscle fatigue. Does anyone use?
Leslie was breaking up a little bit, but again, I think you're talking about, does anyone use BiPAP during the day?
Sorry.
I do.
Lucinda, do you want to talk about, like, again, the times that you kind of rely on it?
Yeah, I rely on it a lot for recovery, from doing something strenuous. And then on those days that I'm feeling just more tired, I will also use it more on those days. Just when I'm doing something on my computer, I'll also be wearing the vent. I'm not sure if that answered the question. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Do you ever use BiPAP kind of in anticipation of activity? Like, you're going to have a really active day, so you'll use the BiPAP sort of before whatever activity?
I'll do that. I would do that actually. I had an online class last term that I sometimes needed to speak in the class, and I would make sure that I put my vent on before class, so that I would have a bit more energy and just ability to speak. And I'll also use it before doing exercising, or even during exercising if I'm able to have it with me. So yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Anyone else want to talk about things that are limiting, or Sarah, do you want to just jump into a follow-up question?
Sure. I was thinking about moving on to a somewhat different take on similar question, which is if there was a treatment and it could improve your Nemaline myopathy related symptoms, what would be your priority list? Meaning, what would be like the most important things looking at your symptoms that would just make the most difference for you?
Well, for me, my main, I think, complication is my respiratory insufficiency. Like I struggle with elevated CO2 levels, and I think it has a lot to do with like the level of weakness in my diaphragm. So if there's a way something could be prioritized, whether it's, I don't know, I mean, I doubt there's any, like medication that would help or anything because, not asthma symptoms. So like no inhaler, like bronchodilator is gonna ever do anything. So I don't know. I mean, someone mentioned to me once that there's like a pacemaker device for the diaphragm, but I still don't know if that is something that can help us. I mean, I feel like it's something like there's some like you can stimulate the muscle, but it's the fact that it doesn't work properly.
Yeah, the pacemaker has been brought up many times here, and it's most for the neuromuscular disorders, the ones that the nervous system is affected, and is the one that cannot stimulate the muscle well, but the muscle is okay in this case because the problem is in the muscle. The pacer doesn't seem to work.
So I don't know
at
if
this
there's
stage.
like if there's another type of device that can like, I don't know, like this is probably just like me making something up that's not possible, but if it can like be inserted and then it like works as a diaphragm for you, like goes in and like pushes it. I don't know. I'm probably not even making sense.
No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a good suggestion.
Leslie, I know that in the past, and I know you can't prescribe any medicines here today for everybody, but I know like albuterol was talked about as a way of maybe improving sort of how easy the air got to the different parts of the lungs, and so easing some of the process. And it was also a stimulant in some way, right? So it may have boosted energy levels a little bit. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we use albuterol in sort of two ways. So one kind of as an inhaler, that people with asthma use, but then also there is actually liquid albuterol. So I think, to your first part, Mark, yes, trying to do things that make breathing easier. It's not fixing the problem of the diaphragm as you're kind of getting at, which would obviously be the most ideal, but it's making the work that the diaphragm does easier. And so, sometimes things like the albuterol are just helping with, thinning secretions, thinning mucus so that coughing is easier, which if anyone wants to talk at all about like coughing or trouble with clearing mucus, that would be sort of another thing that I hear from patients a lot as being a struggle. Then sometimes the nebulizers and inhalers and stuff can help there. We sometimes use liquid albuterol as sort of a more of a boost, trying to address that fatigue that we were talking about earlier, as well as some people have also tried, I don't know if anyone tried on that before, that also is supposed to be a little bit like sort of a booster for the muscles. My personal experience has been very mixed with and I don't know if anyone is on liquid albuterol or Mestinon or anything and wants to share here, but I would say none of them have been sort of big life impact changes, but I think everyone's a little bit different in those areas. But those are definitely kind of types of things that we think about a lot to try to give that boost.
Is anyone on liquid albuterol? No. Okay.
I've heard of it in the X-linked MTM community. I'm not certain if there were some studies done in that population, but I think there was some discussion about it in that community, the use of that liquid albuterol. But the other thing is, I just wanted to say, Alexandra, I like the way you're thinking is like, I don't even know if this exists, but this would be something that would help me. I love that. That's great. That's all part of this. Like we're in this kind of dreaming and wishing and what would help kind of phase. So I think it's wonderful. But also on that note, and thinking that positive pressure ventilation support is kind of like that to provide that bellows support for the weakened diaphragm. And I'm glad we have that available as a tool.
Just one of my working theories that I've been talking to Sharon quite a bit about is the idea that muscle detrains when you don't make it active. And some of the detraining effect is actually, your brain doesn't send as strong as signals if you don't wake up that muscle forcefully sometimes. And so I would like Sharon might be working on this, where how often do any of you that are adults actually scream the loudest you possibly can? And so the idea behind that is that you would train your nervous system to actually get the most out of possible as possible out of the muscle and the nerve interaction with your diaphragm. And so it could have an upside training effect, so that the brain actually sees that you have a positive response to actually call for more demand of the muscle firing. Sharon, I don't know if you want to speak to it, if you guys have been playing with it and what you're seeing. The goal was to be able to express yourself a little bit more clearly, to have a little tiny bit more breathing capacity, maybe because the muscle's a little bit more awake. And then some of the babies in the room, when they feel discomfort, they still let it out, right? They're still screaming, but it's not appropriate for us as adults to kind of do that. So we kind of have this detraining effect where you never actually, get to really do it. So I don't know if I'm promoting you to, disturb your neighbors, but in general, I think it does have the potential to have a positive effect on just the general training systems in general, because for those that have Nemaline myopathy, the nervous systems are actually intact. It's the muscles that aren't engaged as well, or the structure of the muscle, which is impaired. So if you can send more neurologic signals to the muscle, you'll get more motor units to respond to the activity. And so if you have 100 fibers that are responding when you talk normally, but occasionally you can scream and recruit 1,000 muscle fibers, it might upregulate a little bit. So it's one of the working theories, Sharon. I don't know if you've noticed any changes.
So I have to be honest that I cannot remember to ask Liv to do that on a daily basis, but she says that she does it in the car with her school aide, that they scream every morning in the car. We haven't really noticed a difference yet, but I also don't know how long it's been consistent. So we'll try to pay better attention. But I would say that respiratory issues and the ability to cough would be one of our priorities, just because I would like to not have cold season be so terrifying and debilitating, because at least once a year we have a crazy scare. We don't know, are we going to the hospital? Are we not? Liv might be out of school anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So, or in one case, multiple months. And also, we still indoors will all wear masks. And Alexandra, as you were saying, you feel suffocated. I think that has contributed to the decrease in Liv's breathing ability, because it wasn't until the pandemic she used to only wear a ventilator if she was sick. And now she needs it every night. And I think it's because for a very long time at school, she's like spending all day gasping for breath. And so instead of being able to practice, keeping your mouth closed and taking nice deep breaths, there are these extremely short breaths just because she's literally gasping for air. So I think that having the ability to breathe more easily, cough more easily, just keep the lungs clear would be really helpful. And I have to imagine, because she and so many other people here have said that when they are doing physical activity, it's really hard to talk simultaneously, having more breath support would obviously help with that as well.
Thank you. I saw Lucinda unmute. I think she's going to scream for us.
Well, I was just gonna say that I've done some exercises that are kind of like that. My speech therapist gave me a kind of a routine to do where I have to use my voice as like and my diaphragm to belt out a sound as much as I can. And it's the sound e, so like and like but really high.
You should go ahead and do a demonstration. Show us a segment of what you do for therapy.
Okay. It's kind of embarrassing, but so
it works though.
Yeah, it does. Like that, and you try to hold it for as long as you can. That's one of the exercises. And the other one is alternating between an E sound and kind of an aw sound. So it's uh like that.
Yeah.
And oh, what?
No, keep going. It's great.
Okay. I was just gonna say that I've since I started doing that, I was able to swallow better, and kind of breathe better. Like my kind of my throat muscles all through here, were getting a little bit stronger. So I will do that kind of off and on. I don't do it constantly, like every day. I'll do it for maybe a couple of weeks, every day, and then I'll feel like I'm at a good place, and then I might take some time off from doing it, and then if I feel like I'm not able to swallow as well, I'll do it again in another cycle, and that's helped me a little bit. So I
Thank you
just
for
wanted to share that.
Thank you. I know you thought that was embarrassing, but that was so helpful because we do live-does speech therapy 3 times a week, and we do all kinds of stuff with respirators. But I was like, are you listening to this? Now we can do that. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, sure.
And in fact, Sharon, that whole therapy program is written up and posted in the file section of the Nemaline and congenital myopathy group. So you can find the entire list of everything that she does.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to be mindful of people's time. We have just a few minutes left. Sarah, did you have any other questions you wanted to pose just to kind of close?
Yes, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I do invite people who haven't spoken today to speak up. And if you have something, this is an invitation for you to speak now. If you have something you'd like to add, we really would like to hear you. And if you're fine staying quiet, that's fine too. So I want to thank everybody who contributed, and I'll be quiet now so to see if someone else who hasn't spoken had something they wanted to say. We would also welcome chats. If saying it out loud isn't your thing, you can put something in the chat.
I did see Nilton did write, I wish there was a treatment that could help me gain some weight and increase my strength. Thank you for that. Okay. Again, this is really helpful. I think as we have more discussions in the future, we welcome comments. You can send them to us, offline as well. Doesn't have to be communicated this way. Just taking a moment to thank Brianna for being here, and Brianna, thank you. I know we were trying to kind of have you available as our genetic counselor to be able to kind of help answer any questions from that perspective. So I really appreciate you taking your time on your Saturday. Leslie, thank you for while you're mobile and kids are clamoring in the background.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. You know, we're all, you know, balancing everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. And I do,
No,
Sarah,
guys, it was a really interesting discussion.
yeah, Sarah, thank you. Laugh therapy definitely is the way to go. You know, if you can muster up some comedy, I think it always helps. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Does anyone, Gus, you have anything else to close on?
No, thanking everybody, the professionals and the affected families for the discussion. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you. And then just in next steps, you know, if you want to make sure that you have confirmed your registration within the registry, it is important. So Noah Fryu at cmdir.org is an important way to contact him. You can always get to us or Stacy as well. This is going to be a post-webinar survey that you'll receive. And again, to do your genetic testing to confirm your subtype, recommend you click on this. We'll share these slides with you so you'll have all access to these as well. And then again, writing down Stacy's email for tissue donations or any help you need with sort of genetic confirmation work and the CMDIR. She's been our point person there. Okay, thank you to our team for being so helpful and putting this together, as well as taking time of your Saturday. We really appreciate you. And I hope everyone has a great Saturday and hope to see you soon. And also look for your regional gatherings. And I'll be in touch with the Laframboise family about getting together on June 10th. We'll have some more specifics coming out this week.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.